We were taught a simple story, that when dinosaurs ruled the earth, we weren't even dust. No fire, no language, no thought, just silence. And yet, deep beneath the layers of time, there are clues, footprints that shouldn't exist, bones that shouldn't be there, paintings of creatures we were never meant to see. What if we didn't come after the dinosaurs, but walked the earth, almost with them? From fossilized footprints to forbidden bones, this is the untold story of when dinosaurs and humans nearly crossed paths. We've been told a single event wiped the dinosaurs from existence. An asteroid impact so massive, it ended the age of giants in a fiery apocalypse. But what if that's only half the story? Yes, around 66 million years ago, the Cretaceous-Paleogene extinction event devastated life on Earth. The skies darkened, temperatures plummeted, and food chains collapsed. It was a global catastrophe unlike anything life had ever faced. But mass extinction doesn't mean immediate extinction. The truth is, some creatures didn't die out overnight. In fact, some didn't die out at all. Take crocodiles, virtually unchanged since the time of the dinosaurs, or birds, which most scientists now agree are the direct descendants of feathered dinosaurs. Sharks, turtles, and even certain species of lizards survived the cataclysm, adapting and enduring in the shadows while the titans fell. And here's where it gets stranger. In some parts of the world, isolated valleys, remote islands, deep underground, life from the ancient world may have persisted far longer than we realize, not just as fossils, but as living, breathing creatures. There are hints in the fossil record of species that shouldn't have existed when they did. Footprints that appear millions of years after their supposed extinction. Bone fragments that resemble known dinosaurs, dated far too recently. Even DNA studies have uncovered genetic remnants in modern animals that suggest deeper, older ancestry than expected. Is it simply shared evolution? Or signs of species that survived the extinction, hidden away from human eyes? And if that's true, if ancient creatures could survive beyond their time, then we have to ask, could something larger, something truly dinosaurian, have made it through as well? This chapter of history is not as closed as we once believed, because extinction may not be a cliff, but a slow, uneven slope. And along that slope, some shadows might still move. In the winding bends of the Paluxy River in Texas, there's a stretch of limestone that sparked one of the most unsettling debates in modern paleontology. At first glance, it seems like nothing more than fossilized dinosaur tracks. Deep, three-toed impressions left behind by massive theropods over 100 million years ago. But then, there are others. Right alongside them, sometimes overlapping, sometimes in perfect parallel, are footprints that look unmistakably human. Narrow heels, rounded toes, bipedal stride, human, and they shouldn't be there. These so-called man tracks were first brought to public attention in the early 20th century. But it wasn't until the 1970s that a series of excavation teams began documenting them in detail, measuring the stride, analyzing the depth, comparing them to modern human footprints. The conclusion? If they were real, they were walking next to dinosaurs. The scientific community pushed back hard. Many called them hoaxes, carved by locals hoping to make money off curious tourists. Others said they were erosion patterns, or dinosaur prints that had collapsed in just the right way to resemble a human foot. But not everyone was convinced. In fact, even today, some tracks in the Paluxy beds have never been conclusively debunked. They're not clean enough to prove, not flawed enough to dismiss. And then came Mexico. In the highlands of Oaxaca and Chihuahua, workers digging through ancient sediment reported something eerily familiar. Human-like footprints embedded in layers that predate accepted human existence by tens of millions of years. These discoveries never made headlines. Instead, they vanished into quiet academic circles, usually labeled as anomalies or unexplained features. Because to accept them as real would mean rewriting everything we believe about Earth's timeline. But the footprints remain, not just in Texas and Mexico, but hinted at in remote places around the world. Ancient impressions that don't match the time period they're found in, a step taken before it was possible. So the question lingers, Are these strange formations just tricks of geology? Or could they be evidence that someone, or something, far older, once walked beside the giants of Earth? And if so, where did they go? There's a part of history most museums won't talk about, a pattern of evidence that doesn't fit the timeline. In the 1800s, across the American Midwest, newspapers quietly began publishing strange reports. Giant skeletons unearthed in burial mounds, some over 9 feet tall, with elongated skulls and oddly shaped jaws. Farmers, surveyors, even government officials confirmed these findings. And then, the bones disappeared. Some were lost in transport. Others were sent to the Smithsonian, never to be seen again. And those who asked too many questions were often told the same thing. It was a mistake, a misidentification, a hoax. But these weren't isolated incidents. In temple ruins across Southeast Asia, centuries-old carvings depict animals that should not exist in their time. Most famously, on the walls of Ta Prohm Temple in Cambodia, built in the 12th century, a carving unmistakably resembles a stegosaurus. Not a vague resemblance, not a stretch of imagination, a creature with plated ridges down its back, just as modern paleontology describes. But that species had supposedly been extinct for over 65 million years when the temple was built. So how did they know? Some dismiss it as coincidence, a stylized depiction of a rhino or boar. Others believe these ancient artists may have seen something very real. But it's not just Cambodia. In North and South America, tribal legends speak of thunder beasts, giant creatures that roared across the plains and vanished in storms. In China and Mesopotamia, feathered dragons are described in detail, intelligent, winged, and terrible. The Hopi and Zuni people of the American Southwest spoke of lizard gods who came from the earth and taught early humans secrets of survival. Separate cultures, separated by oceans, language, and time. Yet all tell stories of massive reptilian beasts, long before science gave us the term dinosaur. Is this shared memory? Is it myth? Or is it something else entirely? Modern archaeology often ignores these accounts. They don't fit the evolutionary timeline. They suggest a version of history too uncomfortable to explore. But for every carving, every unearthed skeleton, every forbidden text, the questions grow louder. Why did so many ancient people fear the same beasts? And if these creatures were just legends, why do they look exactly like beings science claims they never could have seen? Unless, of course, someone did. In 2020, the scientific world trembled, not because of a new dinosaur species, but because of what we found inside one. A hadrosaur fossil, 75 million years old. From stone, scientists pulled what they thought was impossible. Soft tissue, fragments of collagen, blood cells, and even proteins, preserved in bone as if time had forgotten to erase them. This wasn't the first time. Back in 2005, a team led by Dr. Mary Schweitzer discovered similar tissue in a T-Rex femur. People called it a fluke, a contamination. But more and more samples began to say the same thing. Something survived inside the bones. Blood, not flowing, but echoing. And that changes everything. Because until now, we believed the door to the dinosaur world had shut completely. A hard stop, a fiery extinction. The past, buried and silent. But now, that silence hums. Scientists admit, not all prehistoric tissue decays the way we once thought. Under perfect conditions, freezing caves, amber, deep mud, it can linger. And if tissue can last, maybe life can too. We already know this much. Birds are dinosaurs. That's not theory anymore. The robin on your window, the eagle in the sky, they are descendants of the raptors that once ruled this earth. But what if we're only seeing the domesticated survivors? What if somewhere, deep in Earth's unmapped jungles, frozen beneath Siberian ice, or hiding in South American canopies, something bigger and wilder still breathes? Every few years, stories emerge. giant bird-like creatures seen soaring over Papua New Guinea, reptilian beasts glimpsed in the Congo. Locals with no formal education describe creatures that match extinct species perfectly, down to tooth count and claw shape. Scientists dismiss them, but the DNA doesn't lie. If blood cells from 75 million years ago can still sit inside a bone, what else might be waiting, just beyond reach? Not recreated in a lab, but never extinct at all. Maybe we didn't see them. Maybe we remembered them. Science tells us humans and dinosaurs never met. That by the time we arrived, they had already vanished into the bones of the earth. But there's a growing theory, unsettling and strange, that suggests something else. What if our fear of giant reptiles isn't just learned? What if it's inherited? It's called genetic memory. The idea that memories, fears, and instinctual knowledge can be passed down through our DNA. Not just physical traits, but emotional ones. Why do so many children, across every continent, cry at the sight of lizards, snakes, or massive birds, creatures they've never encountered? Why do even toddlers flinch at sharp claws, glowing eyes, and snapping jaws? Images they've never seen, but seem to know. Could it be that somewhere deep inside our cells, a primal terror still lingers? But there's more. Carl Jung, the father of analytical psychology, believed in the collective unconscious, an invisible well of shared memories and symbols that all humans draw from. Across cultures and centuries, civilizations imagined the same monsters. Dragons in China and Europe, thunder lizards in Native American stories, feathered serpents in Mesoamerica, reptilian gods in Africa and the Middle East. These people never met. Their stories never crossed oceans. And yet, the monsters are nearly identical. Long necks, wings, fire, scales, power, creatures too big to forget, even if we never saw them. How did humanity dream of monsters we were never supposed to know? Is it coincidence? Is it imagination? Or were we told by something older than words? Myths are not always fiction. Sometimes they're just memories, wearing masks. Time, we're told, is solid. 66 million years ago, dinosaurs vanish. 200,000 years ago, humans appear. But what if the timeline isn't as sturdy as we think? What if time itself has cracks? Carbon dating, the method we rely on to age ancient bones and fossils, is not infallible. Changes in temperature, radiation, soil composition, even water exposure can corrupt the results. Some artifacts once believed to be millions of years old have later been revealed to be far younger. Others, still unexplained, like the London hammer, a tool with a wooden handle and iron head, found embedded in rock dated over 100 million years old. Or the fossilized human finger, unearthed in a Cretaceous layer, where only dinosaurs should have walked. Then there are the out-of-place artifacts, or ooparts, objects that seem to defy time, tiny mechanical gears in ancient coal. Footprints in stone, right beside those of extinct creatures, human-like tools buried deep in layers supposedly untouched for eons, each one dismissed, labeled hoaxes, misinterpretations, outliers. But what if even one of them is real? What if one footprint, one bone, one hammer shouldn't be there? If even one artifact is real, our entire understanding of time shatters. It means we've misunderstood history, that something was walking this earth before it should have, or maybe still is. They say the age of dinosaurs ended 66 million years ago, but maybe in some places it didn't. Because even today, much of Earth remains a mystery. We've mapped the moon, but 95% of our oceans still unexplored. Rainforests stretch for thousands of miles, with canopies so thick that sunlight never touches the forest floor. Deep caves, hidden beneath the surface, remain silent, untouched for millions of years. The Mariana Trench, over 36,000 feet deep, could swallow Mount Everest whole. And what waits at its bottom? We don't know. Scientists call these places refugia, isolated pockets of the world where evolution slowed, or even stopped, where species thought extinct might have lingered, adapted, changed. Is it fantasy to think some ancient survivors, relics of a forgotten age, still walk among us? Maybe they're no longer the towering titans we imagine. Maybe they've grown smaller, more elusive, more intelligent. And maybe they've learned to stay hidden. In the Congo Basin, tribes still whisper of Mokele-mbembe, a creature they describe as looking exactly like a sauropod. In Papua New Guinea, stories persist of giant winged reptiles flying through the night sky. And in the depths of the Amazon, entire ecosystems exist that no human has ever seen. We mapped the moon before we mapped our oceans. What's lurking in the shadows of Earth's forgotten corners? If time never ended in these places, then history didn't end either. We've always been told it was impossible, that by the time humans walked the Earth, the dinosaurs were long gone, dust beneath our feet. But what if that's not entirely true? What if, in the deepest jungles, in the last dying echoes of the Cretaceous age, something survived? And what if someone saw it? Imagine early humans, not Homo sapiens, but Neanderthals, hunched by firelight, whispering legends. Above them, the stars. But beyond the cave mouth, something moves. Not another tribe, not a predator they knew. Something massive, scaled, ancient. Would they think it a god? Would they draw it on the walls, shivering as they painted its claws? Or would they run, not from shadows or myths, but from a living nightmare? Even now, in every corner of the globe, we pass down stories of dragons, lizard kings, thunder beasts, and flying serpents. They echo through lullabies and scriptures, through fear and folklore. But what if those stories weren't just imagination? What if they were memories? Maybe it wasn't just fear of the dark. Maybe something with teeth was waiting out there. And maybe it still is. They say humans and dinosaurs missed each other by 60 million years. But the fossil record isn't finished, and history still has secrets buried in its deepest layers. Some bones go missing, some stories are erased, and some were never supposed to be told. Watch the full story unfold, only on Weird Histories. And if you think this was chilling, don't miss our last investigation into ancient blood rituals and the terrifying truth behind vampire legends. The Real History of Vampires, now streaming. Because maybe we came closer to monsters than we were ever meant to.